If you've ever wondered why global climate talks seem to move so slowly, or why the world is still approving billions of new oil and gas projects, in this video I will show you one big reason and what everyday people can do about it. Because at COP30, more than 1,600 fossil fuel lobbyists were given access to the negotiations, more people than nearly every country delegation except Brazil. That's 1 in every 25 people inside the talks, representing the very industry driving the crisis. In this video, I'll break down what it means, why it keeps happening, how it affects your daily life, and the simple actions that help shift the balance back toward people and the planet. So, what's happening at COP30? At COP30 in Belém, something striking happened, again. New analysis by Global Witness shows that more than 1,600 fossil fuel lobbyists were granted access to the climate talks. To put that into perspective, only Brazil, the host country, sent more delegates than fossil fuel lobbyists. And the number isn't just large, it's growing. There is a 12% increase from last year's talk, the highest concentration ever recorded by the coalition that tracks this. But what does that really mean? Why does it matter who's in the room? So, let's look at what's happening behind the scenes, because the influence goes much deeper than the headlines. Let's start with how they get in, the hidden channels of influence. It's not just that lobbyists are attending, it's how they are attending. Some come through major trade associations, like the International Emissions Trading Association, that brought 60 representatives from companies including ExxonMobil, BP, and Total Energies. Others use party overflow badges, roughly 599 lobbyists granted access, that allows them to move inside the negotiations without public scrutiny. And some countries quietly include their fossil fuel executives directly within their official delegations. France brought 22, including the CEO of Total Energies. Japan brought 33. Norway brought 17, including senior executives from Equinor. This isn't small or incidental, it's systemic, and it has consequences. But before we explore those consequences, one question deserves attention, perhaps the most important one. Why does this matter to people outside the conference halls? To families, workers, students, communities, to people like you and me. So let's open that loop now and come back to it in a moment. Because first we need to see what their presence does inside the negotiation, what this presence means for the talks. Fossil fuel lobbyists don't show up empty-handed. They arrive with influence, resources, and a clear goal to slow down or weaken global commitments to phase out fossil fuels. And when they outnumber the Philippines delegation by 50-1, even while typhoons hit the country, Jamaica by 40-1, and the 10 most climate vulnerable nations combined, it really skews the room. It shapes the conversations. It dilutes ambition. It's the opposite of what the science demands and what communities need. But remember that earlier question, why does this matter to everyday life? Why does that matter to everyday people? Let's look at that now. So, why this matters to everyday people? It's easy to assume these negotiations are distant, almost abstract, but they ripple into our daily experience. When lobbyists succeed in delaying climate action, many different things happen. Things like energy bills stay unpredictable, extreme weather becomes more destructive, food prices rise after heat waves and after floods, insurance costs climb, and air pollution worsens, especially in working class communities, because the decisions made at COP shape the systems we rely on. Systems from the energy that powers our homes to the stability of the climate that grows our food. But here's the part that is often overlooked. Public opinion is far more united on climate action than people realize. A global survey found that 89% of respondents support climate action 86% support pro-climate norms, and 69% would contribute financially of their own money. Yet most people still believe they are in the minority. And this spiral of silence keeps us quiet. And silence creates the perfect environment for lobbyists to operate with little resistance. But when people talk openly about climate issues, gently, calmly, without doom or judgment, everything changes. So how do we begin shifting that silence? We come back to the power of ordinary influence. So how can everyday people shift the balance? We may not sit at the negotiation tables, but we shape the political space around those. Here are the actions that genuinely move the needle. First, we can talk about climate change openly, without fear or perfection. Research shows that people respond best to relaxed, relatable voices, not radical posturing. Every conversation chips away at the silence that those lobbyists depend on. Second, support independent climate journalism. It keeps negotiations transparent and it holds decision makers accountable. Third, vote for policies and leaders aligned with a fossil-free future. When public pressure rises, negotiators act differently. Fourth, you can also join or support organizations campaigning for polluter-free COPs. It amplifies the demand for transparency. And then fifth, strengthen your local community, always an important point, because resilient, connected communities carry more political weight. Small actions don't fix everything, but they do create the cultural and political space for change. The space lobbyists work so hard to shrink. So here's a quiet but powerful invitation. COP30 was meant to be an implementation COP, a moment for action, alignment and accountability. But the overwhelming presence of those driving the crisis exposes a deep contradiction. And yet, this isn't a story of hopelessness, it's a story of visibility. For the first time, all non-government participants must disclose who funds them, a small but important step towards transparency. It's not enough, but it's movement. And that's where we come in. By staying informed, by speaking openly, by supporting justice-centered groups and policies, and by refusing the silence that lobbyists rely on, we widen the path towards a future rooted in science, fairness and care. The fossil fuel industry may have a seat at the table, but so do we when we show up in the ways we can. And in the end, it's not the loudest voices that shape the future, but the most persistent. Thank you for joining me this time. See you again soon.